I think given the last few days, it's safe to say that I'm going to have to start a new segment. And I already have so many, and I don't really care if people watch them. But this is going to be called the DNC TV Funhouse, because you can just see day after day there's just these shit show stories coming out of the Democratic National Committee or other levels of the Democratic Party. They really did shit the bed in 2016. If Hillary would have won the election, it's possible that, given that she was in the Oval Office, a lot of this stuff would probably be not making much news, because nobody would care, because the Democrats would not have control of Congress, and obviously a lot of this is kind of exacerbated by the fact that she lost in the White House, but also because the Democrats don't control any level of government. They're losing on the federal level. They're losing, that means Congress and the presidency. They're losing in terms of now the Supreme Court, if you want to think about it that way. With Trump, they might end up losing the Supreme Court for a whole generation. Congress is in Republican hands, and state governors are mostly Republican dominated. I think there's like 31 that are Republicans. And then their state legislatures, I believe, are also on a massive level. They're controlled by the Republicans. So they're in a huge crisis right now. And what they're doing is, instead of really talking about what they've been doing wrong, they've been trying to rebrand and talk about, we're the new improved, we're the new Coke, we're the new Dems. That's their new strategy, a lot of these guys, and it's not working. And that was a story that I covered yesterday. I actually released a video this afternoon, so I guess technically it was today, about Mark Penn, and I think the guy's name is Andrew Katz. These centrist Democrats that are calling for the Democrats to move to the center. Now, before I get into that, let's look at something funny that everybody's laughing at on both sides of the aisle. It's Democrats 2018. I mean, have you seen the other guys? I mean, what a positive message there. And within like a day, everybody on the progressive side was calling that basically the expression of everything that the Democrats have been for decades. The people that'll call the Republicans Christian right and billionaires and millionaires and whatever. And then when crunch time comes, they come together with the Republicans and hack out a deal that does the bidding of millionaires and billionaires. So people were not happy about it. I think if I were a Republican voter and I would have seen the GOP pull something like this at any point over the past 8 years, I would probably say you guys have got a friggin' brain aneurysm or something. All of you, like some sort of epidemic of brain aneurysms, if you think that I'm going to vote for you because of a slogan like that, where you basically don't say anything about what you're proposing. You're just scaring people over what your opponent is doing. You need a positive message in terms of what you do plan to do. And the Democrats don't do that. That's why they are losers. And in point of fact, they're losers in their own, their own mentality is that of a loser. They need loser voters in order to keep winning. The only people who are staunchly ideologically Democrats are people that have either a loser mentality, people that are, voting for the unions or according to their union dictates, or you have these identity groups that they all believe that they need their pound of flesh for whatever persecution complex that they have, or you have people at the top, the winners, that know how to manipulate the people that are the losers.
That's how the Democrats have been succeeding. And the Republicans have, a class like that too. However, I think there's much more accountability. As little as there is, there's a lot more on the Republican side. It's just, you can get elected as a Democrat and they basically let you take a shit in their dryer of some of these voters, and they'll still vote for you. That's their mentality. So let's get back to the Mark Penn story. There's all these reactions from, not even from like hardcore progressives, though. The New Republic, which I consider to be, mainstream liberal. They said, don't listen to Mark Penn. And they went and they said, while the debate over what direction, this is by a woman named Sarah Jones, while the debate over what direction the Democrats should take will rage all the way to 2020, Penn's column is notable for its bad faith, its blatant contradictions, and its misreading of liberal politics. It feels like a dispatch from a bizarre parallel universe where abortion and LGBT rights are not under attack, where a balanced budget is still the apex of serious policy thinking, and where America does not suffer from grotesque wealth inequality. And she goes and quotes him, talking about how Clinton provided for 100,000 new police officers. He supported a balanced budget and welfare reform. And she says, that's not enough to inspire people. The fact that Bill Clinton won elections is not enough to inspire people, and it's not enough to run on. So I'm gonna kind of cumulatively now analyze all these articles. I have 3 of them up, so I'm not gonna go one by one. Then it says there are plenty of good issues Democrats should be championing. They need to reject socialist ideas and adopt an agenda of renewed growth, greater protection for American workers, and a return to fiscal responsibility. And then, he whines a little about the regulation and whatnot. This is the Mark Penn article that she's citing. And then she says, reject socialist ideas, but protect workers. Protect workers, but stop regulating companies to death. Expand broadband and solve the opioid crisis, but never forget fiscal responsibility. Penn also addresses the party's approach to the working class. According to Penn, Democrats alienated the group by shifting leftward on trade, immigration, and policing. There is a simple test for determining what is a serious political option in 2017 and what is not, and it is this. Does the right understand that the working class is not all white? In Penn's case, the answer happens to be no. Well, the problem that, I'm going to hold off on that. Let's make a note. 1 second. Then she talks about how issues like trans rights aren't electoral death for Democrats. In North Carolina, Roy Cooper unseated Pat McCrory largely to McCrory's unpopular support of the so-called bathroom bill. That's not really true because Pat McCrory was unpopular in general. But keep telling yourself that. The people in North Carolina voted out a Republican because of transgender bathrooms. Yeah, sure. And then it says, she concludes, it is devastatingly telling that Penn has apparently learned nothing from his decades in politics. His thoughts are stale, his politics are discredited, the Democratic Party should ignore him for its own benefit and ours. Then we have The Intercept. The Intercept's run by this guy, Glenn Greenwald. Like, I talks like this. Talks like, I'm Glenn Greenwald, independent journalist. Yeah, this whole Trump-Russia thing is a distraction or whatever. I'm just making fun of the way he talks. He has some interesting articles. I'd say his publication, The Intercept, is better than a lot of the other ones. Just he sounds like such a wimp. But, maybe perceptions are deceptive. And one of his reporters, a guy named, I don't know if it's a guy or a woman, says, his name is Lee Feng. Clinton strategist Mark Penn pushes Democrats through the center and quietly profits from GOP victories. And this is kind of an interesting take on it. He's talking about how, and I'm not going to read through this one, but a lot of these things that Penn is connected to, like the Stagwell Media, also works for the Republicans. So this is a guy who plays both sides of the aisle. He's a Dick Morris associate, by the way. I remembered his name from behind the Oval Office. He was one of Morris's closest associates in advising Clinton on winning the 96 election. So he knows what he's talking about, but more in 96 terms. And Targeted Victory, founded by personnel from Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign, provided consulting services for Donald Trump's presidential campaign. More recently, following Penn's investment in the firm, Targeted Victory assisted Republican Karen Handel in her successful campaign against Democrat John Ossoff in the Georgia special election last month. So, you know, they're complaining that he works for both sides. Now, I think for progressives, it is an important, you know, I mean, why should they support the viewpoints of somebody who is clearly not very ideas driven? He's more of somebody who's into the, you know, the political elitist corner, likes to make money from just advising the people at the top. So I understand entirely. I think you know, The Intercept has got at least a good point here, as opposed to Sarah Jones, the previous one. I think she made a couple misjudgments on her statements. And then, but it does go into the fact that he had a ridiculously failed consultants with Microsoft, where they tried to like smear Google for some bullshit about their, I think it's their search engine optimization. So, you know, this is, there's good things and bad things about this guy. And in this last article, the HuffPost, it says it's 2017. Democrats should really just stop taking Mark Penn's advice. And it says, as Democrats rummage through the debris of the catastrophic 2016 election, a bevy of pundits and warring ideological factions has sprung up to explain the party's misfortune and advise it on the best path forward. Given the glut of electoral analyses, party leaders might do well to cross one item off their list, listening to anything Mark Penn has to say. Together with the former Manhattan Borough President Andrew Stein, Penn, a Democratic pollster, co-wrote a column in the New York Times on Thursday calling on Democrats to move back to the center. The column has some ideas that are uncontroversial among rank-and-file Democrats, like rebuilding the country's infrastructure, tackling the opioid crisis, and beefing up protections for workers in the quote-unquote gig economy. But Penn and Stein's calls to reject socialism, moderate stances in favor of transgender and immigrant rights, and fight crime by increasing police are tougher sells. The thing is, taking advice from Penn about how to win elections is a little like turning to Phil Jackson for wisdom on how to win an NBA title. It was a decent idea in 1996. Now, not so much. That's a great zing. That's a great put down. No, I'm serious. That's one of the best lines I've seen in recent weeks. The HuffPost, they hit a home run on that one. Indeed, in the Times column, Penn references his success helping then-President Bill Clinton win a re-election in 1996, but Penn's record as a campaign consigliere since then has been characterized by high-profile losses. Now, they mentioned that he was involved in the Ossoff defeat, like beating Ossoff. But here's another, here we go. Most famously, Penn presided over Hillary Clinton's defeat at the hands of Barack Obama in the 2008 presidential primary. Penn's mistakes during the campaign, enumerated comprehensively in a September 2008 story in The Atlantic, included assuming that the American public would never elect a black man with a foreign name. He reassured Clinton that the right-wing media was cheering Obama on because they wanted Democrats to lose in the general election, and advised her to attack Obama for his lack of American roots. That's kind of a parallel to last year when, you know, Democrats were pushing for Trump because they said, oh, there's no way that Clinton could lose to this buffoon, and plus he'd be good for ratings, and then he ended up beating the shit out of her. Clinton reportedly chose not to take this route, but Penn's counsel nonetheless appears to have seeped into her thinking. In one of her biggest campaign blunders, Clinton said Senator Obama's support among hardworking Americans, white Americans, is weakening. Penn ultimately resigned from his self-appointed role as Clinton's chief strategist after it emerged that he met with Colombian officials about promoting a free trade agreement through his consulting firm that Clinton officially opposed. Penn went on to spearhead a public relations campaign for Microsoft, targeting Google for allowing companies to purchase preferential search engine placement. The campaign's Scroogled ads drew widespread mockery for using political war room tactics in an intercorporate struggle. Efforts to stoke public outrage about the Silicon Valley giants' practices quickly fizzled. As a result, Penn's reemergence from political oblivion to save Democrats from their transgender bathroom and government handout-loving selves was met with incredulity on Twitter. And, you know, that includes, for some reason, Dave Weigel is used as a, you know, useful source. That guy is a retard. Let me tell you, Dave Weigel. Nobody likes him. This Washington Post fraud. You know, basically Mike Penn and him could have a contest for who has less credibility. Elon Green, an editor at Longform, even discovered evidence that Penn has been dispensing centrist advice since his days as a Harvard undergraduate. In an October 1973 column in the Harvard Crimson, Penn argued Democrats should exercise care in impeaching then-President Richard Nixon lest they impeach him on political grounds, which he said would be wrong. Well, what's wrong with that? That's actually a good point on his part. As for the substance of Penn's advice, it is best described as frozen in the amber of the 1990s. At the time, Democrats believed that their ticket to victory was deregulating financial markets and locking up more of America's black and brown men. What a way of simplifying the 90s. Faced with rising income inequality, Democratic voters, moderate and liberal alike, favor more government spending on social programs, not less, according to an April Pew Research Center poll. An Associated Press poll from February 2016 found that half of Democratic voters think Wall Street reform has not gone far enough. The socially moderate pro-business centrism described by Penn remains extremely popular with Silicon Valley billionaires and other elites, but it is hard to avoid the conclusion that the public is moving in the opposite direction, flocking to populists like President Donald Trump and Senator Bernie Sanders to take over a system whose vast cast of players they no longer trust. So we're not going to read the rest of it because, you know, what am I, like Obama reading a teleprompter? Let's address a couple of the points that were made earlier. The one about by Sarah Jones in the New Republic. That sorry if this says here. I made my notes. Important to keep your notes. It says the working class, not all white, which is kind of what she was saying. Oh, he's assuming that all the working class voters are white people, and that's incorrect. And that's not the problem with his advice. He's actually what she fails to understand is that it doesn't matter if all the working class is white. The point that he's making is that the working class voters that are white have nothing to look for in the Democratic Party. And I really mean that. And I'm going to pull up one more screen, even though you're all probably dying from, epileptic seizures right now. But here goes. Okay, this is from, I think, last month. And it says, Donald Trump's war on civil rights is intensifying. And they're complaining about the White House budget includes plans to disband the Labor Department division that has policed discrimination among federal contractors for 4 decades. It's the latest in Trump's ongoing weakening of civil rights, including reconsidering the Obama administration's policing reforms and rescinding his transgender bathroom guidelines under President Trump's proposed budget, the Post reported, Washington Post. The Education Department's Office of Civil Rights, which has investigated thousands of complaints of discrimination in school districts across the country and set new standards for how colleges should respond to allegations of sexual assault and harassment. We'll also see significant staffing cuts. So they're complaining about the Labor Department. Let me ask you something. If you're a progressive watching, which I haven't gotten in, I've asked people through the video and I haven't gotten a response ever from a progressive. You had labor secretaries and labor departments under Obama and Clinton, and what did you get? You got NAFTA and you got the TPP out of both of them. So I don't give a fuck how important you think the Labor Department is, because clearly they haven't stopped any of that shit, and you morons don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you know, the whole argument here that they're having, these progressives versus the liberals and liberals versus the progressives, it will lead nowhere. Let me explain what's really the problem here. You have two sides that are to blame here. On the centrist side, you have these morons, including Mark Penn, that are claiming that you could use the same strategy as Bill Clinton in the 90s. Now, in the 90s, it was actually a very good strategy for the following reason, which is that the Bush administration had run up tremendous debt relative to the past, and Clinton suddenly stole their thunder by saying, you know what, I'm a Democrat, I think we should balance the budget. And the majority of Americans agreed, and they reelected him by a huge margin. And Americans do want a balanced budget, and they do want to obviously rein in the debt. They don't want to keep running huge deficits and have us owing money to China, and that's a huge problem. And it's something that the progressives have no answer for, because they have their thumbs up their asses when it comes to anything like how to really pay for things. All they want to say is the rich aren't paying their fair share. Well, that's not how you balance the budget. You don't balance the budget by raising taxes, because if you look at the states that have been going bankrupt for the past few months, such as Illinois and California, they have taxes up the fucking ass. And when you want to avoid taxes up the fucking ass, you simply hide your assets in a tax shelter, which I doubt that any progressive could really do tax reform and get rid of tax shelters. They'd probably end up cut up like fucking salmon fillets from all of the Democrats that would oppose them, because that's how the Democrats get reelected. These billionaires pay them in order to keep these tax loopholes and havens and shelters alive. That's the way that they get away with stuff. And you know, and if they were to pass it, then you would have capital flight, which is a different issue. And on the other side, the progressives have plenty to complain about with the Democratic Party. The whole lying about infrastructure, pulling the wool over their eyes with things like NAFTA and the TPP, deregulating the banks. Those are things that, you know, if you have a progressive worldview, you should be very displeased with the Democrats about. But here's the thing, progressives. Here's the thing. You waited too long. Progressive supporters should have left the Democratic Party years ago over these policies and, you know, pursued a different party. They could have, and who's to say that they wouldn't have taught the Democrats a lesson? I mean, they thought maybe that they did it with Barack Obama, but the big statement made in the 2016 campaign, besides the white working class voters, you know, I don't care if they're all the working class. Nobody's pretending that it's all white, but the white working class, those who are white people that are working class, did not vote for Hillary Clinton. So that's not a racist statement, Sarah Jones. That's just a statement of a situation that's true. I mean, with everything else wrong that Mark Penn said, stop splitting hairs there. Then this transgender bathroom shit, nobody gives a fuck about. People don't want it, and you're not going to convince anybody to support it that doesn't support it now. because it's all bullshit and it's ridiculous. What else? You can so the other thing that progressives should have done, like I said, is to exit the party long ago. So the second biggest statement behind the voting for Trump by a lot of these white working class voters, many of them were Democrats, was the statement by millions of people that didn't vote at all. And I think a lot of them were the black working class or the black poor. You know, those people, a lot of them did not vote, and they didn't want to vote. They were not going to vote for two sides of the same turd in their mind. You know, a lot of them, I mean, with all this, the noise about Donald Trump and the Black New Deal or whatever, obviously the vast majority still voted for Hillary Clinton. But it's a majority of such a small pool that the black vote was basically, let's say more blacks had come out to vote in Wisconsin, she probably would have won that state. She didn't visit Wisconsin at all. The black vote could have helped her win Michigan. They didn't show up. Guess who won? Donald Trump. In Ohio, they were, I mean, it wasn't even close. Donald Trump completely obliterated her. But if she would have gotten more black voters out, it wouldn't have been such an embarrassment. She had Jay-Z come for a concert in Ohio. She had LeBron James, the most popular man in the state, shilling for her, and she still lost the election on the year that he won the championship for a team that had never won a championship. So, this is somebody who was so toxic and so pathetic that the progressives should have really went out and looked for those populations long before 2016. Long before. Forget about 2016. They should have gone and tried a new party years ago, and they haven't. And now they're playing catch up, and I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to experience more defeats, and the Democratic Party either way. That's why I call it the DNC TV Funhouse. They are out of their minds. I mean, I could go into a few other topics that they would take longer. Might save it for another day. But that's the show for today. DNC TV Funhouse. These people are just carving each other up like Christmas hams with their hatred of each other and whatever. The Democratic Party is a fucking joke today. And the Republican Party better do something, pass some important laws while, the getting is good, because otherwise something is going to change. People are not just going to wait for change to happen. And bitch McConnell better get his ass out of the Senate. Leave, you fucking failure. Because it's your fault that more hasn't been done to take advantage of this situation and bring real free market reforms to America. So I guess have a great rest of your day if I don't see you. And let me know your thoughts on the DNC Funhouse.